Did you see this coming that Mr. Montag would go back to the mothership?
No, to your point, he had worked at Goldman Sachs, left for Bank of America, helped make it a trading powerhouse.
Some would say saved it. Let's not mince words.
But remember, when he left in 2021, it was after a string of news that really questioned the culture under Tom Montag. There's a few things going on. It's his grand return to Wall Street, the board of Goldman Sachs. There's only about just over a dozen people already on this board, very closely knit board, at a time where there are a lot of questions about the culture at Goldman Sachs. Remember, we're only a couple of weeks away from a story that was in the Journal entitled Goldman Sachs is at war with itself. So does Tom Montag, who has long worked with David Solomon, seen as a closer ally to him, start to bring the bank back together and really secure the idea here that David Solomon can bring the ring
in the upset of Goldman over the last 3 or 4 days, and we're not going to go into all those soap opera about it in that, Solomon was at Bear Stearns, and then he and Montag know each other, right? Mm-hmm. So Solomon brought him back. In that process, who does Solomon go to say, I want the guy from Bank of America to come back to Goldman Sachs?
Well, it's interesting because it's not just Solomon. Yes, he's the chairman of the board at Goldman Sachs, but there is still an entire board here.
Yeah.
And you think about, who are the key players? One of those very key players is the secretary to the board, John Rogers, who has worked for CEO after CEO over at Goldman Sachs. And the sense here is that you really can't lose his confidence. Goldman Sachs is not going to make fickle decisions here. Yes, there were huge pivots in strategy. Yes, there's been a lot of griping, but this is year 5 for David Solomon, so certainly a sensitive time.
Of Kate Kelly's article in 2021, huge, long article, and Tom Montag is a dinosaur from Wall Street. He's like a dinosaur like me. He's doing better than me. But, Montag from another time and place talking about work from home and all that, he was dead set against it. What's he going to bring to the board? He's not going to tell them how to construct swap contracts.
Well, one thing that's interesting, one is just confidence in David. That's number one. Number two, and this is, by the way, a very astute way to explain the story here from the scoop from Sridhar Natarajan and Catherine Doherty, because remember, this is, again, a question of the next 5 years at Goldman, not the last 5 under David. But remember, while we talk about consumer, you talk about it all the time, it's a drop in the bucket. It had been a drop in the bucket for Goldman's revenue. They had been performing and beating on their core business lines. They have expanded their lead in mergers and acquisitions in the last couple of years. Their trading desks have done extraordinarily well, although
then what's the problem? This is what I don't get. I mean, over the weekend, there was a lot of gossip, just outright gossip, which we don't do, on this bank. And all of it centers around, OMG, David screwed it up. Has he?
Well, the gossip has been for months, isn't it? Not even just this weekend. I don't know if you've been hanging out in the Hamptons too, Tom. I know you like to talk about it. But at the same time, remember, there's a question of why does Goldman need to be something else? Why can't Goldman just do what it does best? Win at trading, win at investment banking. I think that's currently the existential question for Goldman.